Diep's ex-husband has returned, his eyes filled with regret. But deep inside her heart, has the wound from the past truly healed? What did James do to protect Diep? And what was it in Pau's words, a secret connected to Diep, that made James fall silent in deep thought afterward? Join me in today's episode as the ex-husband comes back with an apology and a truth that's still waiting to be revealed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a comment, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel, so I'll have the motivation to keep telling you the next chapters, where that hidden secret will finally begin to unfold. The road leading down to the market shimmered under the soft morning sun, as if coated in a thin layer of gold. Diep quietly carried a basket of melons on her back, each step leaving a faint print on the gravel path. The sound of cicadas filled the air, and the wind whispered through the bamboo groves. Everything seemed so peaceful. Every now and then, she bent down to adjust the strap on her shoulder. Sweat dampened her collar, yet her heart felt strangely light. But then, at the curve of the hill, a deep, husky voice called out behind her, making Diep freeze in place. "Diep, is that you?" That voice, though years had passed, still sent a shiver through her. She turned around. The sunlight fell unevenly across the man's face, half in shadow, half in light. Time had etched lines along his skin, sprinkled gray through his hair, and dimmed his gaze with a mix of shame, regret, and something unspoken. Diep stood silent for a few seconds, as if the past had suddenly come back to life. The man before her, Pau, was once her husband, but also the one who had caused her the deepest pain. Those years had nearly broken her, and because of him, she had left everything behind to start anew. And yet now, here he was, standing on the sunlit road, holding a small puppy in his arms, looking at her with eyes gentler than she remembered. "It's been a long time. How have you been?" Pau's voice trembled slightly. Diep didn't answer right away. She gripped the strap of her basket tighter, forcing back the flood of memories rising inside her. The midday sun suddenly felt harsher, the air thick with heat between them. "Pau, what are you doing here?" Her tone was calm, though her lips quivered. Pau lowered his head, running his hand over the puppy's fur as if to hide his unease. "I was just passing by. Didn't expect to see you. Honestly, I never thought I'd have the chance to say I'm sorry." Diep looked at him, her expression unreadable. Her gaze drifted toward the hazy green valley below. Perhaps, years ago, she would have cried, or shouted, or cursed him. But now, all that remained was a quiet emptiness. She nodded softly and said, "It's all in the past now." Pau invited Diep to sit on a fallen log by the roadside to rest from the sun. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He quickly took the basket from her shoulder and set it gently beside them. Diep wiped the sweat from her forehead as a breeze from the hillside lifted the edge of her blouse. For a brief second, she glanced at the man who had once been her husband. His face was weathered and tanned, marked by hardship. Yet his eyes carried an unfamiliar softness. "How are your parents?" Diep's voice was low, as if afraid to stir the ghosts of the past. Pau stayed silent for a long while, his hand absent-mindedly stroking the small puppy lying quietly on his lap. Then he smiled, a small, awkward smile tinged with sorrow, as though he had to gather every ounce of courage to speak.
I don't live at the old house anymore, Diep. The day I found out I wasn't my parents' real son, I realized there was no reason to stay. All this time, I kept blaming others for being cold, but it was me. I was the one making myself miserable. He paused, eyes fixed on his rough, calloused hands. His voice softened, carrying the weight of regret. I moved up to the hill and built a small shack. I take whatever work people offer, clearing grass, hauling goods, fixing fences. On good days, I eat well. On bad days, I just drink water and wait for morning. But at least, those days, my head is clear. No more alcohol, no more anger, just silence. He let out a quiet laugh, simple, sincere. Looking back now, I think, when you left, it was the best thing for both of us. If you had stayed, you wouldn't have had the peace you have today. Seeing you like this, healthy, working, loved, I'm really glad. Diep sat still, listening without interrupting. His words mingled with the rustle of leaves, each one landing softly in the quiet corners of her heart. Sunlight filtered through the trees, scattering patches of gold across Pau's face. Thinner now, darker from the sun, yet strangely calm. Before her was no longer the rough, drunken man she once feared, but someone different, quieter, humbler, almost fragile. Every word he spoke felt like a confession, stripped of all pride. Diep lowered her gaze to his hands, scarred, cracked, and darkened from labor. They bore the weight of years spent trying to make amends. A wave of emotion washed over her, a mix of sadness and relief. Perhaps people really can change, but only after they've reached the deepest depths of pain. Only after losing everything do they finally learn what it means to cherish what remains. The sun was climbing toward noon. Golden light poured over the winding dirt road that hugged the hillside, and the grass on both sides shimmered in the breeze, trembling like green threads under the sunlight. Diep adjusted the wide-brimmed hat on her head and bent slightly, ready to carry her basket of melons down to the market. But just as she shifted her shoulder, she heard Pau's voice behind her, low, gentle, yet firm. "Let me carry it. We're heading the same way anyway." She paused for a moment, her eyes flickering with hesitation. Then, without a word, she nodded lightly. Pau stepped forward, carefully lifting the basket from her shoulder. His hands were steady, strong but gentle. The heavy load now rested on his back, while Diep walked beside him, their steps falling into quiet rhythm. The narrow path curved along the slope, sunlight spilling across the hills while their shadows stretched long ahead, moving slowly with each bend in the road. They looked like two rivers that had once diverged, now meeting again at a silent turn. No longer wild, just calm and steady. They talked about simple things, small stories, meaningless on the surface. Yet in the chorus of summer cicadas and the soft breath of wind flowing down from the hill, everything felt still and full of quiet emotion, as if they were walking through another chapter of life, one without anger or regret, only peace. Just then, James's pickup truck rolled slowly down the winding road leading to the market. The mountain breeze slipped through the half-open window, carrying the scent of damp earth and wild grass after last night's rain. Late noon sunlight glimmered across the hood, scattering golden reflections as the car turned a bend. James narrowed his eyes. His gaze caught on something in the distance. Under a sun-dappled tree, two figures were walking side by side. One of them was Diep, and the other? He recognized instantly. James's grip on the steering wheel tightened. His heart skipped a beat. That man, Pao, Diep's ex-husband, the one who had caused her so much pain and heartbreak. Now he was walking beside her, and Diep was smiling. A quiet, peaceful smile. One that somehow made James's chest tighten. He pressed the accelerator lightly, letting the car glide past them before pulling over ahead. The door opened with a soft thud that broke the stillness of the afternoon. James stepped out, tall, composed, his black shirt catching specks of sunlight and dust. His gaze found Diep, steady, deep, unreadable. Diep. Where are you going? Diep's face brightened. I'm just heading to the market. I ran into Pao on the way. He offered to help me carry the basket. James's eyes shifted to Pao. The man looked different from the one in his memories. Thinner, skin tanned from labor, eyes softer. Yet for James, the past was not so easily erased. He would never allow Diep to be hurt again, not even once. Thank you for helping, James said evenly, his tone polite but taut. But it's a long walk. Let me give you both a ride. I'm heading to the market too. The air between the three grew heavy. The cicadas droned on from the hillside, and a gust of wind lifted a few dry leaves, swirling them across the dusty road. Pao lowered his gaze and nodded quietly. All right, that's fine. He knew his place, a man standing outside a story he once belonged to, a story that had moved on without him. James gave a slight nod and opened the car door, his expression calm but watchful. And Diep, she stood there in silence, caught between two men, one from her past and one who now held her present. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to stop, before the three of them stepped into the same car, carrying with them a silence thick with emotions yet to be spoken. The truck slowly rolled into the district market, the narrow dirt road thick with dust and the hum of midday bustle. Vendors lined both sides of the street with baskets of vegetables and melons, their voices mingling. Greetings, laughter, and the rhythmic cadence of small-town life. James parked near the edge of the market, stepped out carefully, and took the basket of melons from Diep's hands. You stay here and sell, all right? I'll come back for you later, he said softly but firmly. There's something I need to talk about with Pao, in private. Diep froze for a second, then nodded. She understood. Between those two men lay something that needed to be said, and it wasn't her place to interrupt. The two men walked to a small tea stall by the roadside. After a few polite questions about Pao's life, James leaned forward slightly, his tone calm but edged with steel. Pao, what's your intention in meeting Diep again? Inside James's chest was a quiet storm. The instinctive fear of a man desperate to protect the woman he loves. He watched Pao closely, his gaze sharp yet composed, his voice steady, as if holding his emotions on a tight leash. Pao didn't avoid his eyes. He sat still, fingers interlaced, eyes lowered to the glass of tea before him. His face was roughened by sun and labor, leaner now, but his eyes were clear. No trace of the old bitterness, no smell of alcohol, only sincerity. His voice came out low, slow, unguarded. He told James about the years he'd spent working odd jobs, clearing fields, hauling goods, fixing fences. about how he'd quit drinking and how he now lived simply, quietly, like a man trying to rebuild from the ashes.
I just want to live decently, he said. To work, to stay sober, to appreciate what I once took for granted.
James listened in silence, and in that moment, he saw in Pau not pretense, but true remorse. Still, his reply was calm, deliberate, and resolute. I can see you've changed. But Diep's been through enough. I won't let anyone hurt her again, not ever. Pau let out a faint, bittersweet smile. I understand. Don't worry. I only wish her peace now. I don't have anything left to lose. He paused, gaze drifting toward the open street. Then his tone dropped lower, almost to a whisper, as if he was speaking only to himself. There's something, a secret about Diep, something she deserves to know. But maybe it's not mine to tell you. It's hers to hear. James frowned slightly, his expression tightening. Before he could ask more, Pau stood up, his voice quiet but firm. Thank you for the talk, James. I owe Diep an apology, and the truth. With that, Pau turned and walked away. James sat there, the afternoon sun slanting through the window, casting his shadow long across the table. Pau's final words echoed in his mind. A secret about Diep. A strange feeling stirred inside him, a sense that something was coming, something that could shatter the fragile peace they had fought so hard to find.